Welcome to a special Inside Recruiting Channel podcast from ERE Spring 2010 in San Diego, California. Jeremy Eskenazi is Managing Principal of ERE Advisors, a leading human resources consulting firm focused on helping companies improve their internal recruiting processes. He is a leading speaker to organizations on the value of the staffing function, including chairing the ERE Expos in 2006 and 2007. Let's spend some time talking about your general panel session here at ERE this year, which is titled Beyond the Downturn, a panel of survivors surviving the year and planning for the decade, which is a real mouthful.
My panelists all come from companies that have significant consumer products and services. And they were amongst the hardest hit during the downturn. So we wanted to talk about what are some of the things that these businesses and these leaders had to deal with in terms of the impacts from the business changes that they encountered and what those things had to do with their talent acquisition function. We want to talk about what did they have to deal with, what were some of the challenges that they were up against, how did they address those challenges, how did they keep their teams motivated during a really tough time, and how did they use that time to innovate? It's really about people who really did survive, and what are they now doing to prepare for the new decade?
Who are the companies and representatives that are going to be on your panel?
We have Paul Martin, who is the Vice President of Global Staffing and Diversity for Sony Pictures Entertainment. We have Ginny Eagle, formerly the Director of Talent Acquisition for T-Mobile USA. And we also have Brad Warga, who is the Vice President of Talent and Employee Engagement for Harrah's Entertainment. All of the panelists are with, obviously, companies that are highly focused on the consumer, as we've discussed, and understand how their employer brand ties to the consumer brand. So how they deal with their candidates and treat their candidates all ties back to these people being potentially a current or future customer. So this makes the staffing function and the talent acquisition function inside of these organizations much more visible and prone to focusing on candidate experience and things like that. It also makes these leaders and their staffing functions inside of these companies much more visible and prone to cuts, because when the consumer stops buying, then we stop hiring, and staffing becomes very visible to the financial teams as a place, well, we can cut that. So they've all had to deal with these kinds of challenges I've just described. But being in a consumer-oriented company, and all three of these people have a keen understanding of the connection between candidates and customers.
Jeremy, what are you looking to accomplish at ERE this year?
Myself and my team at ERE Advisors, as well as my partners in the Asher Talent Alliance, we will be wandering around the halls at ERE. We will be spending a lot of time talking to vendors in the expo, talking to them a little bit about what's new, what's changing, what are some new technologies and tools that are out there. And I'm anxious to see several of the sessions. I'm excited to see John Sumser's presentation on recruitment disruption. I'm really excited about that. And I'm really excited that ERE has decided to add a track this year for small and mid-sized employers.
One last question. Is there anything I didn't ask or we haven't discussed that you think is important for our listeners to know about recruiting and HR in 2010?
Yes, the only thing I would say is that I think that this whole idea of cautious optimism, we need to maintain that cautious optimism. One thing I do want to sort of set the level straight on is that I think that a lot of recruiters who were affected by the downturn in 2008 and 2009, who were laid off, may find it very difficult to find a job back inside of corporate recruiting in 2010. That being said, that doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities for recruiters. That means, though, that those recruiters need to be more focused on being more flexible on the type of work environment that they might pursue. So that means that contingent work like contract recruiting, working in or for a recruitment process outsourcer or other kinds of alternative recruiting organizations may be a place where displaced corporate recruiters might look.
Well, again, Jeremy, thanks so much for joining us today on Total Picture Radio.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Jeremy. Riviera Advisors is a sponsor of Total Picture Radio's coverage of ERE Expo 2010 Spring here in San Diego, California. Stay tuned for in-depth interviews with all of the panelists participating in Jeremy's general session, including Paul Martin, VP of Global Staffing and Diversity from Sony Pictures Entertainment, Ginny Eagle, the former Director of Talent Acquisition for T-Mobile USA, and Corporate Vice President of Talent and Employee Engagement at Harrah's Entertainment, Brad Warga. This is Peter Clayton reporting. Thank you for tuning in to Total Picture Radio, the voice of career and leadership acceleration.